yeah, I figured I'd even bust out the old Taekwondo jacket from my glory days for this video. So Creed is basically a continuation of the Rocky franchise, starring Michael B. Jordan as Donnie Johnson, the son of Apollo Creed, and Sylvester Stallone reprising his role as Rocky Balboa. Now this was a movie that I thought kind of came out of nowhere for us. I hadn't heard very much about this movie from earlier on in the year, and when I did finally hear about it, I didn't really know what to think of it. I mean, the Rocky franchise is one of the most beloved movie franchises out there, so trying to reinvent something like that is always a huge risk. And while I do think Michael B. Jordan is a good actor, he was part of Fantastic Four, and if you saw my spoiler for that, you know I hated everything about that piece of shit. And then you look at Sylvester Stallone, and he really hasn't been in anything good for quite some time. I honestly thought he was basically retired from Hollywood. But then this movie started getting really good reviews, so I decided, alright, I should certainly check this out. I even heard some people call this movie the best all-around boxing movie since The Fighter from 2010, a movie I absolutely love. And now that I have seen Creed, I have to respectfully disagree with that statement. It's the best all-around sports drama I have seen since The Fighter. Simply calling it the best boxing movie released since The Fighter, that's cutting it way short. Creed was fan-freaking-tastic. I loved every single thing about this movie. It did everything right. It's everything you could want in a boxing movie, and I am so happy to be talking about it with you guys. So as I mentioned earlier, this movie focuses on Donnie Johnson, and his dream his entire life was to be a fighter. I mean, he grew up only with his mother because Apollo Creed died before he was even born. He had spent time in juvie from fighting with other kids, and he even quit his very successful day job in order to pursue boxing as a career. And towards the very beginning of this movie, we see just how good a fighter he is. And immediately here was already where I started to really like this movie. Because when we see the first fight, not only is it really cool to see just how good Donnie is at boxing, but also the way the fight is edited in this movie. And I know I'm not one who really makes a lot of comments on editing in movies, but if I notice it, I will talk about it. Because the way this fight was portrayed and shot was as basically one continuous take. You know, there were no jump cuts, no interchanges, there was nothing at all like that. I mean, the fact that this movie could pull off that fight while still making Donnie look like he's bruising and bleeding with every punch he's taking, I think is really impressive. After this fight, Donnie ultimately decides to move to Philly in order to pursue a career in boxing. And this is where he meets Rocky Balboa at the restaurant that he runs now. Donnie's goal here is to get Rocky to be his trainer, because who better to train him than the guy who beat his father in the ring? It takes some convincing at first, but he eventually is able to get Rocky to train him. And it's just really cool seeing Rocky train Donnie the way that he does. I mean, he pushes him, he motivates him, and he also teaches him not just a lot of great lessons in boxing, but lessons about life itself. Which I thought brought a lot of heart to this movie, which certainly is never a bad thing. So as a result of all this, Donnie is now able to gain the success in boxing and in life that he's always been wanting. I mean, he's winning boxing fights, he gets a girlfriend, and more importantly, you see him really developing this kind of father-son relationship he has with Rocky, which is obviously just so huge for him because he never had a father in his life. But speaking of his actual father, it doesn't take people long to figure out that he is in fact the biological son of Apollo Creed. And this is something that Donnie's been keeping secret his entire life. Because one of the biggest plot points in this movie is the fact that Donnie doesn't want to be defined by the last name of Creed, as in, you know, he doesn't want to be defined as simply the son of the greatest boxer of all time, because that obviously puts the fear inside him that he's just going to disgrace his father's legacy somehow, some way, and people are just going to look at him as a failure. So naturally, he wants to make his own legacy, he wants to become a great boxer by himself, and he wants to show that your last name should not define who you are. In simpler words, he wants to be known as the first Adonis Johnson, not the next Apollo Creed. And honestly, this was an element of Donnie that I thought was great for this movie. Because honestly, if you placed a lot of people in this situation, I can guarantee you that some would be like, wait, my dad's rich and famous, I'm basically set for life? Pfft, hells yeah! No, in Donnie's case, he wants to work to be a great boxer, and he wants to earn praise for just being the best him that he can be. I think that's honestly a rare quality you find in people nowadays. Namely because I lose faith every day in my generation, and probably future generations too. So as people slowly but surely figure out who Donnie really is, it does not take him and Rocky long to get a phone call from the agent of Ricky Conlan. Conlan is essentially the best boxer of the present generation in this movie. The dude is an aggressive fighter, he is undefeated, and he's also at a very desperate point in his career. because he was recently caught in possession of a firearm, which is now sentencing him to time in prison. So Conlan's agent naturally feels that this could be the very last fight of Conlan's career and feels that a fight between him and the son of Creed would be a great way for him to go out on. He, however, makes the requirement to Donnie and Rocky that Donnie officially lists his last name as Creed for this fight. It takes some deliberation by the both of them, but they do agree to the terms. So now, obviously, since Donnie now has to take on a world champion, Rocky is pushing him much harder, so he actually has a chance at this. But here is where Rocky now has to face his own obstacle. He at one point just collapses, he has to be taken to the hospital. So after doctors, run some tests on him, he learns that he has officially been diagnosed with lymphoma. However, lucky for him, it's currently at the stage where it can be treated successfully with chemotherapy. But Rocky declines the chemotherapy because he feels he's lived the life that he's needed to live and there's nothing left that he really needs to fight for with it. However, when Donnie hears about this, he obviously urges Rocky to fight this illness. Because as I mentioned, Rocky has become so much more than just a trainer to Donnie. He has become something Donnie has been without his entire life, and that's a father. Donnie tells Rocky that he's going to need his help if he's going to fight in this match, and Rocky's going to need Donnie's help if he's going to fight through cancer. They make that deal with each other, and then we get a great montage of seeing the two help each other and depend on each other to overcome each of these battles. It's just one of those scenes that brought so much more emotion and heart to this movie, which is great. So now the day the big fight gets here, and obviously there's a lot of trash talking going on between the two fighters. And then just before the fight begins, Donnie gets a package from his mom that is actually Apollo Creed's old American flag shorts that he can wear for the fight. But it's also something his mom sends to remind him that he will always be Apollo Creed's son, but he will also make his own legacy. So now the fight between these two boxers begin, and towards the beginning of it, Conlan seems to be winning the fight pretty apparently. I mean, Donnie is taking a lot of hits, he's bleeding a lot, and it eventually gets to the point where one of his eyes gets forced completely shut from all the punches that he's taking. And after another huge hit by Conlan, Donnie goes down. However, he's able to get up just before the ref can get to 10, so the fight continues. But yeah, it's obviously not looking too great for him. But Rocky tells him at the end of one of these rounds that he is a great fighter, he is here for a reason, and he has everything it takes to win this fight. And you can tell this definitely gives Donnie a little bit of the push that he needs for this. The fight goes on, and Donnie now seems to be taking control of it a little bit. I mean, he's been landing some good shots against Conlan, and you can tell he's starting to get into Conlan's head a little bit there, which I thought was awesome to see. I mean, Donnie is completely battered, he's blinded in one eye right now, and yet he is still giving this everything he has, and he is giving a hell of a fight against the best boxer in the business. That just makes this fight much more intense, it leaves you on the edge of your seat, and it just leaves you rooting for Donnie that much more. It really does get to the point where Donnie clearly is starting to take control of the fight now, and after delivering a lot of great hits, Conlan now goes down. However, he is also able to get up just before the final round can end, which sucks because had the round gone on for just a second longer, Donnie probably would have won by knockout. So naturally it comes down to the judge's decision, and by a very narrow margin, Conlan is ruled the victor, which is disappointing. But one thing that I really did like seeing is immediately after Conlan won the fight, he goes over to Donnie, he thanks him for a great match, he tells him he's an awesome fighter and that he is the future of boxing. And the reason I really like this is because they were obviously trash talking each other a lot before and during the fight, like athletes will do with each other before and during an event. But as soon as it's over, most athletes, the ones who aren't dicks, they'll shake their opponent's hand, say, good game or good match, and they'll only wish the best for each other. Because that's the way it should be. Looking at you, Bruce Irvin, we all saw what you did towards the end of the Super Bowl. And now that the fight has ended, Donnie has won the admiration and the respect from everyone in the world who saw him fight. They all express how, he did his father justice and he has such a great career ahead of him. At the end of the movie, it shows him and Rocky, back in Philadelphia. And you can clearly see Rocky is still struggling, with old age and with cancer and everything like that. But Donnie is still helping him every single step of the way, just as Rocky did for him. So all in all, Creed is a great movie. The story is awesome. The boxing scenes when they happen are so intense. The editing, as I mentioned, is flawless. Michael B. Jordan is awesome in this movie. He played this role perfectly. Sylvester Stallone, though, wow. Not only do I think he gave hands down the best performance in this movie, but I think this is definitely one of his best performances of all time. He's shown in this movie that he can still act and do it really, really well. I seriously think he should be a contender for Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars this year. I also love the lesson in this movie and the fact that it says you should never live in the shadows of someone else's greatness. You should go out and make greatness of yourself. This is easily the best Rocky movie since the original. It's one of the best movies I've seen all year. This movie resurrected and reinvented a beloved franchise for a new generation to enjoy. Hopefully Star Wars The Force Awakens can do the same thing when it gets here. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.